Welcome to part 9 of the Sapphire Builder Essentials. In this video, we'll be focusing on Sapphire Builder transitions. So instead of applying combined effects to a specific shot, you can also apply a combination of Sapphire filters as a custom transition between two shots. The workflows are somewhat different, but the overall builder functionality you've learned throughout the series is pretty much the same. Let's check this out. Similar to other Sapphire filters, your Sapphire transitions are normally found in the Effects panel. Locate the Sapphire transitions or do a search for S-transition to find the Sapphire Builder. To apply the S-transition between two cuts, drag it onto the cut. The transition will set itself to the default duration of the host. In this case, it is 1 second. Scrubbing the sequence, the default builder transition is a cross dissolve. Another point worth mentioning is that Sapphire transitions are automatically animated between two shots, matching the behavior of native transitions in the host. To load a Sapphire transition preset, click Load Preset to call up the presets browser. This time, the presets browser loads all the transition presets instead of the usual effects presets. As before, you can navigate through the transition presets, filter the transition presets, search the transition presets, preview the transitions, and finally load them. So there's a whole range of pre-made Sapphire transition presets to choose from. But what if you want to make your own custom transition preset? For example, let's say we need to develop a look that will be used across an entire series. This is where Transition Builder comes in very handy. Moving to the next cut, let's add the S-transition again. You can start with an existing preset and build on it, but for the purposes of explaining the builder, we'll start from scratch. So let's edit the effect. The configuration of Builder is more or less the same. You have the tools on the left, the viewer and workspace in the middle, and the parameters panel on the right. To illustrate the differences between the Effect Builder and the Transition Builder, I'll turn on Preview up to selected node. Looking in the workspace, the Transition Builder starts with a From node and a To node. In editorial terms, the From node is your outgoing frames of the transition, and the To node is your incoming frames of the transition. To blend the incoming and outgoing frames, there is also a Transition node. This is the mandatory control for the transition, and its default setting is a cross dissolve. The result node is the output back to the host. You can scrub the preview to see the current result. To start creating your own preset, the first step is to change the main transition. So instead of using S-dissolve, you can click it, and in the floating window, you can choose from 3 transition types. Let's choose Other and choose S-Swish 3D. Reviewing the preview, the images move towards us through the transition. Let's increase the rotation parameter, and now we have a bit of an added twist in the transition. We can also add some swivel to make the look more unique. Plenty of options to develop the design. Now, like I said previously, the transition node is the main node that's required for the transition. However, since this is a node graph, it is possible to insert other filters to keep building on the design. For example, I'd like a glowing effect to be part of the whole transition. So select the transition node and pressing Tab, add a glow node after it. Scrubbing the transition, you will note that the glow brightness is already animated with the transition. This is indicated by the animation icon to the right of the brightness parameter. Pretty much all the filters will have this kind of animation by default in order to easily work with the transition. In fact, you can set most parameters to have this animation if that's what you want. If you click the icon for the animation and linking menu, you will see that the brightness ramps up and down, matching the animation of the overall transition. You can adjust the maximum value of the parameter, but this is the behavior for the animation. Now let's play around with a few of the settings to stylize the look of the glow. That looks really great, but let's add another effect to finish it off. For example, let's add a blur effect, but only to the incoming frames as part of the transition. So select the To node and press Tab and add a blur node. Make sure you go to a frame where you can see the incoming clip. Now you can tweak the blur in the context of the transition, and remember the blur amount is already animated as indicated by the animation icon. As a reminder, if you just want to see the output of the blur and not the entire result, you can toggle Preview up to selected node. Once you're happy with the blur, let's play the transition to review the result. You can keep adding effects and developing the transition, but this is a great workflow to build custom transitions. Click OK and the transition is applied in the timeline. Now you can play it in the context of the edit. So we've created a custom transition, and this can be copied to other edits in the sequence. Now we'd like to create a preset that you can use as well as share with others. The first step in creating a Sapphire Transition preset is to go into the Transition Builder and choose which parameters we want to expose in the host. Starting with the Transition node, we'll disable all the parameters for starters and turn on Center, Rotation, and Swivel. Remember that you can change the name of the parameters by double-clicking on them if you want. Next, we'll go to the Blur node, and the only thing to expose will be the blur amount. Finally, selecting the Glow node, let's keep the brightness and threshold parameters in the host. Now with all these parameters defined, click Save As to create the transition preset. Let's call this Stylized Glowing Zoom, and the description could be something like Stylized Glowing Zoom with a blurred twist. I'll set myself as the author and set the tags to artistic, blurring, glowing, and zoom. This preset can be centralized for sharing, which I showed in previous videos, or if this is just for this system and its hosts, click the Save button. Click OK to exit Builder. To test the preset, go to another edited sequence, add the S-transition effect, and click Load Preset. Switching to Custom Presets, we'll load the preset created earlier and apply it to the S-transition. Scrubbing through the sequence, the transition is 1 second long, but let's halve the duration. Lastly, opening the parameters in the effects controls, there are only the parameters we defined in Transition Builder, making this transition easy to tweak but maintain the overall look. So combining filters in Sapphire Builder offers so much flexibility, whether you're creating a custom effect or custom transition for any production. Throughout this series, I've taught you a lot, but there is plenty more to discover. In the next video of the Builder Essentials series, I'll touch briefly on some nodes you might not think of using, but can be really useful. See you in the next video.